I want to really cover two themes now with you for the next 30 minutes or so. Is measures that are commonly used and they have normally a budget focus, which is massively dysfunctional, costs a fortune. And then I want to look at the Vanguard method focus, which is effectiveness first and efficiency second. And the really good article written by Jeremy Cox, who's just spoken, in our previous periodical, which is called The Efficiency Paradox, and I thoroughly recommend that you read it. I'm going to illuminate a little bit around that theme as I go through, but you really need to read the article. John Dunyan, the first speaker today, also wrote an article in our first periodical called The Rag Trade, and I really recommend you have a look at that as well. That's talking about all this red, amber, green junk that you encounter, because it's junk. Anyway, so traditional best practice approach as advocated by people like the Homes and Community Agency and promoted by people like the Chartered Institute of Housing, KPIs, targets, chasing efficiencies, see housing associations being bashed together, come up together to try and build bigger scale, chasing efficiency. Of course, instead of having two small problems, you've now got one big problem. That's good, isn't it? Unit cost, that's the big driver. Got to drive down the cost. It's a silly idea. Cost spend per property. You know, people worried about hot properties. I'll come back to that. Sweating the labour and then sweating the assets. Anybody from housing here recognise this junk? Okay. So KPIs and targets, let's have a look at that because they're wonderful. Everybody advocates them. You know, and they drive people around the bend. So when you're managing repairs and you're trying to set up contracts or whatever, they're often managed by what's known as a core group, people in the client organisation that are supposedly skilled at this. And the core group's responsible for procurement. And of course, you've got to have a real tight finance focus in procurement, don't you? Anybody's been through the torture of OJU, you know what I'm talking about. And then mobilising the contract, and then actually monitoring the contract. And of course, in that, the management focus is unit cost, unit cost, unit cost. You could probably set it to music. And it's all about trying to drive efficiency and economies of scale. And of course, what you learn, as John and the other folks have alluded to, is economy doesn't come from scale at all. It's a mad idea. Economy comes from understanding flow, how the flow flows. Okay? So, anybody had the KPI handbook foisted upon them? Yeah, see a few people nodding. Yeah, you have. Great. It's wonderful, isn't it? And they've all got monthly targets in them. And the targets are not met each month. You've got to have an action plan, and it has to be in writing so you can be beaten over the head with it later. And then what you find is good people, good, decent, hard-working people are turned into liars and cheats. And that's deeply disappointing. Lots of people are nodding now, so you know what I'm saying. Okay. This is a quote from a contract I looked at recently. And if you fail to meet the target month to month, the client then comes to meet you, the contractor, if you happen to be the contractor, and they bill you for helping you to fix your action plan. And you think, hang on a minute, there's something wrong in this? Am I missing something here? Because it's got on the front of the document, one team, one challenge, one future. So these are just some examples for you. There are many more that I'm sure you could think of. So I want to talk about repairs completed right first time, on target time, ceiling on spend, and so on. So let's deal with the first one. Repairs completed right first time. I love this. This is a belter, as they say in Belfast. So I picked this up here. This was the job we went into, and I was in an estate. I was with the plumber, and the plumber said to me, before we got into the house, he said, I know what the problem is, John. I said, you haven't been through the door yet. How do you know what the problem is? He said, I've been here before. I said, really, have you? He said, I have. So I believed him. So when we went into the kitchen, tap was dripping. I said to him, okay, so what's the right repair here? He said, this tap's knackered, the barrel's knackered. We should really change the tap. I said, that's great. Do you have taps in the van? Yes. I said, are you going to change it? No. I said, well, why not? He said, because my machine says I have to re-washer it, reseat it, and I've got 15 minutes to do it. I said, well, if I tell you to do it, would you do it? He said, if God told me to do it, I wouldn't do it. Direct quote. I didn't see God in the back of the van when we opened it later, but there you go. That's a direct quote. So I said, oh God, right, okay. So he said, because smart arse, when you go away, my manager, my supervisor is going to come and kick my ass for ruining his numbers, because it'll have pushed up the budget, because we tried to suppress the amount of money we spend. So you've spent, and I went, okay, so I wonder, has this happened before in this property? I found out it happened 10 times for the same tap, for the same problem. And every time at the budget meeting, every month, everybody's going, it's bloody brilliant. And the contractors loved it because they got 10 opportunities to do the same thing, and you paid them 10 times. So you've paid £700, you've still not fixed me, and you think you're getting value for money. It's a madness. This is happening everywhere across the country, and it's driven by budget focus. It's a madness. So I want to talk now about repairs completed on target time. You know, you've got the emergency, urgent, routine. Is that familiar to people? So here's what you see, reported to the board. We're 98% on our emergencies, 97% on our urgents, 97% on our routines. And everybody's ecstatic until I turn up and I show them this. It can take up to 8 months to get a repair done. It could take up to 3 years to get a repair done. 77 times out to the same alarm system in 7 months. 26 times out to the same kitchen. 17 times out to the same bathroom. You could have replaced the kitchen twice for the amount of money they wasted. 26 times. I'm not making it up. See, it's this bonkers notion of, emergency, that would be very bad. There'll be water pouring through the ceiling. But if your tap's only dripping, sure, you can wait. No, you can't. Ceiling on spends. Because this is a notion, have you ever heard of this notion of hot properties? Properties are causing, individual properties causing us a lot of problems, so we'll put a ceiling on the amount we spend on this. Patrick Hoare, my colleague, and I were out at a property, at an organisation quite near here, not that long ago, and they were really proud of the fact that they were going to penalise themselves. Because you've got two customers. You've got the people who live in the property, and you've got the property itself. It's the only thing that earns you money. It's an asset. So why would you not repair the window or the door or the roof or the pointing or the plaster when it needs it? Because if people left the property, you'd have to do it. No, we wouldn't. We'd just pretend we didn't see it. Really? Is that ethical? Oh, yes. No, it's not. Reduce the number of variation orders. Familiar? Yeah. So we've got to stop the variation order. You're going to find out now why, or very shortly, why you have loads of variation orders. It's caused by the system. And it's caused by a desire to reduce cost, and all it does is drive cost up. Not sometimes, not maybe, always. And then jobs per trade per day. And, I've seen numbers like 8, 9, 10, 15, 12, and I kind of go, where'd the number come from? I don't know. Just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So when I say, okay, so how many jobs come in here every day? Don't know. Well, let's go have a look. So we look every week and have a look. So here you have a system which has got an average of about 130, could be up to 172. Percentage of jobs that are wrongly diagnosed using diagnostic IT in the call centre. You know this stuff, people phone in, got a plumbing problem, and we've got a leak or something, we've got water pooling in the bathroom. Okay, so they've got a picture of a house, and they've got a picture of in the house is a picture of a bathroom, so they click on the bathroom. And there's water pooling at the base of the wash-hand basin. Okay, so we click on the wash-hand basin. Then there's a list of schedule rates jobs, and the person who has phoned in doesn't know about the plumbing. The person who's answering the call doesn't understand plumbing, but the person who doesn't understand plumbing is picking the job and sends it out to someone who does know. And then we wonder why it's wrong. We wonder why there's so many variation orders, for example. So in this case, and this is not an extreme case, it's an average of 77% wrong. Because when the plumber stands in front of the problem, rather than somebody in a call centre with a bit of diagnostic software, which is more junk sold to the gullible, it could be up to 92%. Is that good work? Is that sensible? Is that getting it right first time? I think probably not, but you might think differently. Number of jobs rebooked could be up to 77, an average of 51. Every week, jobs rebooked. Why? Well, because I turn up, back to the wash-hand basin, I turn up and there's water pooling at the base of the wash-hand basin, and I look at that and I go, because I'm a plumber, you see, I'm not looking at a screen, I'm looking at the job, and I know my trade. There are people who believe that the software is smarter than a time-served plumber. I think that's mad. But anyway, the plumber sees actually the leaks from the toilet. And he says, well, it's coming from the toilet. The tenant says, that's great, can you fix it? No. Why not? Because this machine says it's at the wash-hand basin. So you'll have to rebook it. What do you mean I'll have to rebook? Can you not rebook it? No, we're not allowed to do that. You've got to rebook it. Because we'll be accused of job building. Trust. Great. So examples again. Voids, turnaround targets, time targets. This is one I witnessed. This was a family, 2 parents, 2 children standing in this property, and there were 2 other families standing outside waiting just in case these people turned this one down. It was day 24 on a 25-day void turnaround target time, and the housing officer was under pressure. This is the bathroom. There you go, there's the toilet. You see the toilet? Would you sign for that? But it's okay because we know where the pan is. It's in the bath. This isn't made up, this is real. I witnessed this, that's why I took the photographs. And no wall tiles, no floor tiles, no bath panel, nothing. But you got to sign for it because I have a target to meet. And if I get you to sign for it, it doesn't matter whether I leave it like that because I've ticked the box. This red, amber, green junk deludes leaders who never get out into the work. So what? Well, we go set about redesigning services for effectiveness first, because there's got to be a primary focus on effectiveness, because if you go for the efficiency route first, you can be efficiently ineffective. I've seen lots of that. So you've got to be effective first, and the guys who've spoken before me, probably better than me, but they've spoken before me and have actually stressed to you, we've got to get it right. So if we get it right, and we are effective, then we can make that effectiveness efficient. That's the sequence, not the other way around. So senior leaders must get involved in the work personally. It's not something you can outsource to your staff. You've got to personally make a visible commitment to learning. You've personally got to get out and see what's going on and be part of it. You've got to actually redesign the work in the work itself. When I talk about some of the examples of the cases that I've helped work on, and people jump in their car and go, let's go look at them. That's a silly idea. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Because they copy the physical things. They don't actually take the time to understand the mental change that has occurred that my colleagues have talked about. It's about what's going on between here and here, not individual things that are going on. So you've got to redesign in the work itself. You've got to use measures that pass the 5 tests of a good measure. So the first test is, how does this, whatever you're measuring, help you to understand and improve anything? And I ask this question when I'm doing scope-wide work. I kind of go, what does this help you understand and improve? The answer I get, well, it comes out of the machine. That isn't the question I asked you. The question I asked you is, how does this help you understand and improve anything? The second question is it derived from the work itself and is it accurate? And if you tell me it is accurate, I want you to tell me how you know it's accurate. And how do you know it's actually come from the work, or is it being gamed? Okay? And the third one, do we actually display it in variation? So we see the variation. Is it in the hands of the people who do the work to control and improve the work? That's the 4th test. And the 5th test is the crippler. Is it used by leaders to actively act on the system so they're taking informed decisions based on facts? Having a practical purpose, not some airy-fairy thing, some really focused practical purpose. Focus on doing only the value work and understanding the significance of logistics. So, the tenant decides the time of the repair. And everybody says, John, I need to lie down when you come out with that. What? What? They'll be looking for it at 8 o'clock at night. No, they don't. They're looking for it on a Saturday. No, not unless the water's coming through the ceiling, they don't. The DSS stands for Dynamic Scheduling Software. Anybody got that stuff? Great. That means you can have any appointment you like so long as it's not the one that suits you, so long as it's the one that suits us. And people go, you couldn't possibly do that. Well, you can. Effective operations and field management. We need to take away this view of control, being driven around technology. Control should come from leaders who do 4 things. Leaders do 4 things. They support people, they educate people, they develop people, and they apply in a disciplined manner the Vanguard method. That's what they do. Or that's what they should do. Or that's what they do when they work with us. And field management, there's a clue in the title. You're meant to be in the field, not in a field, but in the field, managing things. And you've got to get the expert in front of the problem as soon as possible. So if it's a plumbing problem, who's probably the best person to decide what the problem is? Any guesses? Would it be an electrician? Probably not, unless he's a multi-trader or she's a multi-trader. It's probably a plumber. When we talk about value work, it's about getting that expertise to the point where it can do an assessment properly as quickly as possible. Doing the right repair right first time. Time to do the repair. I'll give you a quick example. I do work in Ireland as well, and I was in a house in Waterford relatively recently, and the plumber, Chippy, that I was working with, who's a multi-trader, I said to him, Noel, what's the problem? He said, the problem is underneath the bath itself. The outlet pipe's loose. I said, so what are you going to do? He said, I'm just going to put a beading of silicone around the edge of the bath because I've only got 15 minutes because it's on my machine. I've got to get in and get out. I said, no, let's do this one properly. What would we do? He said, well, I'd have to take the bath panel off. I'd have to take all those beading off. He said, because if you look at it, John, there's 4 guys that have been here before me and they've all done the same. So I said, well, so we'll get all that out and do the correct repair. His name was Noel Delaney. He was a really good tradesperson. And now that organisation have set up their own area. They've got a pilot going at the moment, and they're setting up their own logistics support as well. Now I'm helping them do that. So these PDAs are a curse. An organisation I worked with a few years ago, they had an £8 million repair budget. £2 million of it was being directly thrown down the drain by the use of dynamic scheduling software and PDAs. And I'm not going into the detail of it now, but that's a quarter of it was being blown away by that. And you've got to design your van stock against demand. Don't ask the tradespeople because they don't know. Go get the data. So the measures are, what are the demands by type and frequency? Capacity to meet that demand, end-to-end times. Is the repair still working for you? What does it cost to do it? How did you rate the job? So this is the capacity gap, and this is where it all goes wrong. Not sometimes, not maybe, always. It always goes wrong here. Because we go, look, so we've got all this demand, John, and this is all the capacity we have, and there's a big gap. So what do? Well, people traditionally do 2 things. They either get more resource in, or they buy dynamic scheduling software. What a great waste of money that is. Because it only buys you a week. That's all it buys you. It only buys you a week. Until it's all filled up. And then you're saying, well, we can't come to you for another 2 weeks. And would you like it on a Friday at 3 o'clock? No, it doesn't suit me. Well, that's the only one you're getting. Okay. So the challenge is, when you understand the difference between value demand and failure demand. So if you take away the failure demand, what's my challenge now? Well, I've got too much capacity. So what do the bean counters tell you to do? Get rid of them. Sack them. Get rid of them. You've got far too much resource. No, that's a silly thing to do. What we have to do is find proper things for them to do to deal with the jobs we have to do and take the proper time to do them. You see, if you're doing it right first time as well, you're not going back 9 times. You're only doing it once. What does that do for your capacity? It drives it up. Oh, we're definitely going to get rid of somebody now. No, you don't. And we have the materials on the vehicle to fix the problem. Do anybody know why there are burger vans at Travis Perkins, Jason's, Build Base, B&Q? Anybody know? Go, have a guess. That's where the tradespersons go when they're waiting for their materials to be delivered. And when you look at jobs per man per day, typically it's about 3, because they go and get materials, go do an assessment, go get materials, wait for an hour, come back. So when you actually look at the actual reality, you get about 3. I want to talk a little bit now about predictability. Daily repairs into the ABC housing, there is no such place, I hope. But it could be anything up to 71 in that system. And people go, but you can't predict the demand, John. Sorry, you can, if you study it. They want you in between 9:30 in the morning and about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Why do you think that is? Children, school run's been done, and they're waiting to pick kids up again later, and they want to go out in the afternoon. But if you'd have the dynamic scheduling software, it's a flat line. That's all you get. Whereas if you design against this, guess what happens? When you ask someone and say, when would you like us to turn up? And they say 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. Here's a revelatory fact. I'm glad you're all sitting down. Guess what happens when you turn up at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon to fix the repair? They're in. The rascals are in. I've never worked it out myself. There you go. Plumbing repairs. So we disaggregate it down. What is it for plumbing? Lo and behold, it's the same thing. And then people say, smart Alec. What are you going to do here then? All these plumbers sitting around. No, you might want to redeploy them to work on voids. You might want to redeploy them to do some maintenance that's planned. I don't talk about planned maintenance, I talk about maintenance that's planned. There's a clue in the title. Okay, guess which day of the week's the favourite? It's a Tuesday. Why? Because I've reported it on a Monday and I need to organise time to get off tomorrow or whatever. And then a Friday before it's fixed, before the weekend happens. That's when we want it. You see, if you use measures that tell you what's actually happening, understand what's actually happening, then you can plan to meet it. And this is a very, very important piece of information for you. If they say to you, I'd like you to turn up at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon, you got to measure plus or minus 10 minutes either way. Did you turn up at their time? And turning up 10 minutes early is as bad as turning up 20 minutes late, because you can't get in, okay, unless they're there. But if they're not there, you're waiting. So it's very important to understand that. Anybody measure that? No? Okay, maybe we should start. Recalls on jobs completed first time. Loads of recalls up until a roll-in commenced when we had a new way of working, as the guys have talked about before. Weekly cost of repairs incurred that week. Well, before we started working with this particular organisation, it was an average of £166,000 a week being spent on repairs. This was a big organisation. And by fixing it, redesigning it, working with material suppliers as well, we reduced it down to 107 on an average. And then we brought in a new self-built IT system, which helped us reduce it even more, down to an average of 80,000. And then logistics system went live, including a new logistics IT system, and went down to 60,000 by focusing on not cost, by focusing on effectiveness, turning up when people want you, doing the right repair, having the right stuff on the vehicles, etc., etc. So just briefly, some logistics measures. All parts that are needed, but they're not on the vehicle. Burger van, here I come. No. We actually design it to make sure that it's on the vehicle. And with a new materials catalogue introduced here. These are just some examples for you. I spend a life looking at really boring things like 3-metre lengths of 20mm copper pipe. You need to know this stuff. Why do you need to know this stuff? So if it's coming off the vehicle, your job is not to have him driving or her driving around looking for it. It's your job is to get it back on the vehicle for him. So a plumber is plumbing, an electrician is doing electrician work, not a van driver work. I want to talk now about the £90 tap. You see, I've done the right repair. It's right and it's first time. It cost 90 quid. If I started off talking to you about this and your schedule rates was 70, you'd have kittens. But actually, you haven't wasted £610. Anybody know how many taps you get for 600 quid? No, John. Well, the answer is at 30 quid a pop. Any accountants in the room? You get 20 for free. Do you get my point? And you look at, this is the secret of the success of this. Do it right first time. do the right repair right first time. It may cost you a little bit more initially, or may not, but it's done, and you're not going back 9 more times. People say, okay, smart Alex, so is the issue then we replace all taps? No, because you have to have a thinking thing. Get the expert in front of the problem and let them make the decision. You can't do that, John, because they'll do anything. I've actually found that tradespeople, when given responsibility, are quite happy to take responsibility and do the right things right first time. And actually, some of them say to me, this is the first time in years I've been allowed to actually practice my trade rather than be a robot on the end of one of those. Okay, so what? £78 million saving over 8 years. Reinvested. Some of it was saved, but a lot of it was reinvested. That's what? This thing bakes bread. Current measures don't help you manage things. They create an illusion of control. Vanguard measures have to be useful, first of all. First test, how does this help me to understand and improve? Is it derived from the work and accurate? Did I see it over the time variation, etc.? And those 5 tests help you to effectiveness first, efficiency second, and economy comes as a byproduct. And you then have real control. Real control. Not this illusion or delusion of control. Thank you.